I think this is almost a must-win for the Badgers against Northwestern coming up in the Big Ten tournament. We're going to talk about it, preview the game. Plus, spring football is coming up. Which players are we most excited to see? A loaded Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here for you every single day. Appreciate you tuning in. I'm Roast Red Herrings. We also got Rajiv over there who does this show as well as the Bucket Report. We have a loaded show. We are talking Big Ten basketball tournament, Northwestern preview, plus spring football superlatives. First, today's episode brought to you by TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to turbotax.com today and get matched up with your expert. Let's get into this. So, huge game for the Badgers tomorrow, basketball. 1:30, BTN, Northwestern, who just knocked off Minnesota. You and I were both talking about it. We would have rather played Minnesota. I think that matchup's better. Wisconsin's still a better team than Northwestern, if all the pieces are there and they're all clicking. But I think this is a tougher matchup. Rajiv, how are we feeling headed into this one?
Nervous. Very, very nervous. Obviously, we didn't end the season the way that we wanted to end it. And when you have a loss like that against Penn State, you just can't wait to get back out there and to see your team win and actually feel better about it, because we know what's coming next week. Selection Sunday is a few days away. It's going to be fantastic. So yeah, I'm just nervous, man. This is not the team I wanted to play, but look, at this point, we need to handle our business. I mean, we're the better team. We've been better all year. It's time to step up. We've got Max Klesmit returning, which is fantastic. We've got Nolan Winter, who appears to be healthy and fine despite whatever shoulder issue he had. And yeah, man, I mean, I am not as confident as I want to be, which is upsetting to me, but this is tournament basketball. You got to get it done now.
I want to ask you this, because I titled this show Must Win. Now, it's not must win in the traditional sense of if the Badgers lose this game. They're still getting into March. They're still going to be a decent seed. I feel like it's must win for this team's, though, momentum. I don't think you can lose to Penn State, then lose to Northwestern, having eked out a game against Minnesota and that collapse against Oregon. I don't think you can go into tournament like that. I think you have to win this game. You agree or disagree this is a must-win for the Badgers, just in terms of what we want them to achieve in March?
100% agree. I mean, there were people after the Penn State game. There are people on, our reaction show. There are people on Bucky Report, people in the comments saying, I think the Badgers have won their last game of the year. There are people that legitimately believe that we're going to lose tomorrow and lose our first round of the tournament. And listen, if that's what you believe, then that's what you believe. And I get it. I don't agree, but I totally hear that. That's why this is a must win. We need to send a message that we're okay. I mean, look, the loss to Michigan State, that's one thing. The Oregon loss, there's been a couple tough ones here, but the Penn State game was we just shut it off for whatever reason. Well, we can't shut it off tomorrow. So we need to show that we actually have this. Absolutely. I agree. It's a must win. Are we knocked out of anything if we lose other than the Big Ten tournament? No, but our confidence level will be in the tank. Our seeding will drop. We need to just come out here and do well. Plus, it's Max's first game back. We've been talking for now a couple weeks about how much of a difference Max Klesmit should make coming back in the lineup. And yeah, there's a lot of things riding on this. Most of all, confidence, because confidence is exactly what we need to take into the NCAA tournament. And remember, we are a veteran team. Veteran teams tend to do well in these tournaments and do well in the NCAA tournament. So, I mean, this is all those seniors that lost their senior day make up for it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the Klesmit thing is interesting because from a team perspective, we've been talking about, maybe he was the difference, but maybe he's the reason for this swoon. Well, if you go out there tomorrow, Klesmit's back and you lose to a Northwestern team with Klesmit, well, maybe that's not the reason, right? Also, the selection committee, they do to some degree take a look at injuries. They do to some degree take a look at, well, he missed some games and then he's back and they beat Northwestern and maybe they beat UCLA. That'll factor into some decision making to some degree. But if you go out and you lose to Northwestern, but Max is back, then geez, maybe it wasn't Max missing. Maybe we were playing a little over our skis earlier in the year and this team isn't as good as we thought. I just think it's a massive game because this is a veteran team, but in life, these are still young men and confidence matters. Going into March with some confidence matters. You can't go into March nosediving and expect success.
And shooting as well. That's a really big part of it. We've had a bit of somewhat of a downward trajectory in our shooting percentage lately. So we need to really kind of get that back going. And this is that first kind of tournament atmosphere, right? You're playing on neutral court. It's not an arena anyone's really familiar with. It's where the Pacers play. It's a great arena, by the way, but it's just not something that people are really familiar with. So it's going to be difficult, but it's part of the test of March. And listen, Northwestern poses a lot of threats, man. Like this team is scary.
Well, let's get into that. So let's talk a little bit about who Northwestern is, what they can do to you. Let's start offensively. They're really good in transition. They're in the 90 or 87th percentile in transition percentage, which this is an area where Wisconsin has also struggled defensively at times, matching up in transition with shooters. Northwestern will pitch it ahead. They space really well, and they'll take quick shots. Leach and Barry both shoot 39% from three. So they have a couple snipers, and that's 39% on volume. What does Wisconsin struggle with defensively at times? Giving up open shots. You can't do that against Northwestern because they're going to shred you. And then we got to talk about Nick Martinelli, who is really skilled. He's a tough matchup. It's going to be probably Winter's guy. We talked about it before the show, you and I. That's a tough matchup for Winter. He's a veteran player. He's got a lot of savvy. He can score the push shot. He can score the floater. He can score in the paint. He can shoot the ball. He'll drive it. They give you some tough matchups, and some of what they do doesn't match up well with what we struggle with as Wisconsin defensively.
And the one thing you can always count on from a Northwestern team is their sound. They are very clean. They're crisp. They don't kill themselves, although they do turn the ball over nearly 10 times a game, which is near the bottom of the Big Ten. They're also not a very good free throw shooting team, so that's a couple things. But yeah, I mean, look, they generally shoot the ball about 35 to 40% from like that. They take 35% of their shots are from three. They don't take a ton of threes, but Leach and Barry will take, they take a combined about almost 10 threes a game, those two. And yeah, Martinelli's a beast. Now, what we have going for us is that Barnhizer is still out for Northwestern. So he's not going to play. He was kind of the first half of the season. He was averaging 17 points a game, one of their better players. Martinelli's certainly their beast. He had 28 points today, by the way. Martinelli did 28 points. And I think Carter Gilmore / Winter, you mentioned Winter guarding him. I think it's probably going to be both of those guys. And look, when Gilmore's a senior too, man. Gilmore's got something to prove. And I feel like Gilmore's had a couple not bad games, but offensively bad games. But if he can really step up and kind of take the reins a little bit and try to keep Martinelli in check, we're going to be a lot better off. But we are going to have our shots. We're going to have our shots. We're going to have to take them. And yeah, that means hitting the open threes in the corner, right? That now that McGee's going to be coming off the bench again, maybe he can kind of be that energy, that spark plug that we've talked about so often. But look, this team was 7-13 in conference. They didn't have a great record, but they did have a couple key wins. They beat Indiana. They beat Illinois early in the Big Ten season. So they've got some big wins. They've lost a lot of their games. Generally speaking, this team will compete with everyone, and then they'll tail off in the end because the other team just has better offense, better small things, better free throw shooting, better overall shooting. But if you think this team's going to roll over, that's just not true. Every game they've been in this year, they really fight. Now, they do play much better at home. They're not the greatest team away from home, so hopefully that plays into our hands a little bit. And also, last thing I would say on Northwestern is sometimes it's a benefit to play in this first round of the tournament too. Like they've been there already. They've already shot in that field house. They're already familiar with everything. They have nothing to lose at this point. They're playing for their chance to get into the tournament by winning the whole thing. It's a scary situation for the Badgers. Yeah,
that's really well said. I mean, they also played yesterday, so it's a little double-edged sword, right? Wisconsin has another day of rest, which should hopefully help a little bit. This is a team that needed that day, but you're also right. Like Northwestern played well. They have momentum coming into this game. I'll also say, like, there's a lot of, I don't want to say doom and gloom, but Evan said, Northwestern's very tough matchup, not loving this, realistic, worried about this game. Nick, zero confidence in this game. I think we have both talked about maybe being a little worried. I'll also just point this out. Wisconsin's a better team than Northwestern. If the Wisconsin team that had Max Klesmit plays like that team, they're going to outscore Northwestern. I'm very confident in that. So I hope Klesmit's back. That means Blackwell and Tanjay play less minutes. That means they're a little fresher. McGee to the bench gives you that bench scoring punch. There's a scenario where we win by 10 or 15 just because the shots go in and we start playing like we did earlier in the year. This is not all doom and gloom.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, like, had we not lost that Penn State game, what would people be saying right now? We'd be like, cool. First of all, we'd have a double bye. We wouldn't be playing tomorrow. But it's really seeing that performance, which, by the way, was our really only bad loss the entire season. Like, that is pretty impressive, right? I mean, we've had the entire season gone through. We never have a bad loss. So in theory, this should just be one of those other games that we get done.
L Mills says we'll be fine. That's the energy we're looking for here. And this is a good point too from Don't Badger Me. He says, listen, if you're worried about a non-tournament team in the Big Ten tournament, down a couple starters, speaks to your confidence level in this team. That's a good point as well. All right, we're going to take a quick second here for our friends of the show, but we are going to come back, give our official game prediction, and then get into some spring football superlatives. Which players are you most excited about? But first, a quick second for our friends of the show, new friends of the show over at Monarch Money.
Yeah, ever check your bank account and wonder, like, where did all the money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Listen, I've used stuff like this before. I'm definitely going to be using Monarch Money. I realize how much I eat out, right? Which is a bad thing. And that stacks up so quickly. But when you can see it all in one place and you can actually get a sense of, wow, this is actually how much money I've spent doing this, it's nuts. Monarch Money is the kind of place that's going to help you do that. Absolutely an easy place to do that. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. And Ryan's going to talk about another friends of the show, Factor.
I love these guys because I can cook. I can barely shop for groceries. Factor, they get the groceries for you. Then they have a chef who's been to culinary school, like chop them all up. They may have delicious recipes, and then they ship them to your door. I literally just take my Factor meal, which I have 3 or 4 of them in the fridge right now. I put it in my microwave. I hit the number 2 button. I don't even have to hit the 200. Mine I hit 2 and it goes. I take it out and I eat delicious meals, Italian food, meats, veggies, all grilled up, spiced, cooked. It's incredible. Factor is perfect for people that just are busy. They want to eat a little healthier. They want to supercharge their meals, a bunch of different options and customization plans. Eat smart with Factor. Get started with Factor meals. And then there's a great offer for Locked On customers here. Factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Use code LockedOnCollege50 off, and you get 50% off your first box plus shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50 off at Factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your shipping plus your first box. All right, let's jump back into this. Let's talk game predictions and then spring football superlatives. Football is back. Game prediction, Rajiv. What are you thinking for the Northwestern game?
I like us to win. I'm thinking we're going to drop 82 because I feel like we are going to score a lot of points. I'm saying 82-68. I think we're going to get right, and we need to get right because if we don't, we're going to have problems.
Yep. L Mills, get right game. Sean Campbell, I know everyone is worried, but this will be a get right game. My Lord Lester says we beat the Wildcats by 23. Evan says 72-64 Wisconsin. So everybody is thinking this is a game where Wisconsin should win, and they should win. I agree with you. I think the offense gets a little right with Max. I'm going to say 81-70, about an 11-point win.
The thing about this game, in the whole landscape of the Big Ten tournament, right? Like everyone has their opinions on whether the Big Ten tournament is good for everything, not good. We both kind of don't really like it, but this is one of those games where like there's a big swing, right? So this is the first game where you really have nothing to gain from winning this game, but you've got everything to lose, right? Because if you lose this game, your tournament seed will drop. Because remember, we only have one bad loss the entire season, and it's Penn State. This would qualify as another one. So that really would hurt our seed. You get past this round, you go to UCLA. That's that neutral game where you don't really have anything to gain by it. You also don't have anything to lose. You lose to UCLA, no big deal, right? Everything past that is full gravy, right? You only have things to gain by beating Michigan State, potentially maybe it's a Maryland or a Purdue or something like that in the championship, but you have nothing to lose. There's absolutely nothing to lose if you make it all the way to the semifinals against Michigan State. So this is really the game that has to happen. And then UCLA, it's just kind of that neutral game where for me personally, everything after tomorrow, I'm okay. If we lose, I want to play well, but if we lose to UCLA, fine. We get extra rest. We don't hurt our seed. If we get past them, then we're really in gravy territory. And then I'm okay. Again, if we lose, we get more rest, we win. Now we can climb up potentially to the 3 seed with the win over Michigan State. So this is really that like, this is the one we have to do. And then the tourney kind of becomes, well, whatever happens, happens.
That's a really good point. You're dead on. Like, you have to get this one. And honestly, I want UCLA too. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I want the UCLA revenge game. I want to win those 2 games and then just play well at Michigan State. And listen, Michigan State's a really good team. You can win or lose that one, whatever. I want UCLA too, because I think this team can use some momentum. I think we're better than UCLA, but you are dead right. If you lose to Northwestern after losing to Penn State, you're jeopardizing seeding. And if you jeopardize seeding, bro, you're not going to make a run in March. You got to line yourself up to have that success. And this is the domino you got to kick over. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, the way I see the seeding, it's like 3 to 6. That's basically our sort of wheelhouse right now. Probably in the 4 or 5 line. If we beat Michigan State, for example, we get to the finals, we're a 3 seed. If we lose tomorrow, we could honestly drop down to 6. Now, we have been a 6 seed in Milwaukee before. We got past Richmond in the first round. We lost to Pittsburgh in the second round. So like we might still get Milwaukee, but I think the most likely seed, you win tomorrow, you're probably at worst a 5, maybe a 4. So it really, like, this is one of those things we can't let this go. And honestly, man, I can't see a situation where we would, because after what happened in the Penn State game, I would talk about a wake-up call. But yeah, the Big Ten tournament is an interesting time. But you're right. It's just about getting right, helping yourself out as much as you can for the following week.
And seeding be damned to some degree. Like I just said, it's so important. But it's also, like, you can have whatever seed you want. If you're limping into March, having lost 2 straight games to Northwestern, Penn State, you're losing the first round. Like, you're just not playing well enough. That is a trend line at this point. I've been pretty clear on, like, I think the Penn State game was a bit of a one-off. You didn't have backs. If you lose these 2, now you're establishing a trend line. If you're playing poorly, you're not going to make a run in March. That's why, to me, this is so important. It just you have to show you're playing well. I think it's really important. John asks, is this live? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. John.
We like our late night live episodes.
He's got some other questions in here, which I don't know if I can get to in this, but I love Dan Carlin. Haven't played Civ 7 yet, although I haven't heard great things. Okay, let's get into football superlatives. Dude, I can't wait. I love football. I was going to try to go to practice tomorrow, but I think it's just going to be too early for me. If you're in the chat, throw your football superlatives in here as well as we start to talk about these categories. The first category, Rajiv, and we'll take turns answering first on these. The new transfer you are most excited to see.
I mean, it has to be Billy Edwards. I don't know how it can't be, just because, like, I feel like we finally, and again, I'm just going to cross my fingers here, like, maybe we've got our quarterback that we can be excited about, that can play a whole year and that can be the guy that we expect him to be. But it's not just about Billy Edwards. It's about Jeff Grimes and that offense. And that's why I had the excitement about Billy Edwards that I do. I've listened to a couple of interviews with him. I feel like he's kind of got a good head on his shoulders. He feels like he has something to prove, stepping up to a different level of university. Obviously, he was still in the Big Ten, but yeah, I mean, I really think that he's like, ultimately, he's the X factor. Anything you talk about with this team, it's going to come down to Billy Edwards. So yeah, I mean, it's got to be Edwards for me. There are a lot of transfers I'm excited about, but man, Billy Edwards, he's the guy.
Yeah, I went away from Billy because I figured he's the most important guy. But we've talked about him a ton, so I just wanted to go in a different direction. Yes, I'm super excited to see Billy Edwards Jr. because can we finally have a quarterback? It feels like we've been searching in the desert for water, and maybe Billy Edwards is the oasis that we've been desperately needing to quench our thirst. But I'm going Jaden Ballard, and I'm just looking at who might be the lottery ticket. When I'm excited to see somebody like Tanner Koziel is really important, and some of the defensive linemen, but Ballard might be the lottery ticket, or if he hits, he gives you something physically nobody else on the roster can do. Not even Vinny Anthony. Ballard's bigger than Vinny Anthony. I think he's probably even a little faster potentially. If he hits, just to the point where teams have to respect that, man, that changes everything offensively. It changes the schemes. It changes how they play you defensively. It opens up space underneath. It pushes a safety off. It gives Edwards another weapon. So I'm really excited to see him, just to see if he could hit, because he's a scratch-off lottery ticket, but he's one of those scratch-off lottery tickets that has a $1 million payout if you hit it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And I'll throw in one more really quickly, and it's Koziel, because like I feel like we talked about Koziel a lot, but that guy could be a complete, you talk about game changer, like talk about total game changer. That 94 catches last year, like, come on, that's going to be such an excitement for us.
Well, let's get to the next one here. So John says excited to see if Eugene Hilton can make a splash. That's our next category. Which freshman are you most excited to see? I'll lead this one off. I hate to just steal this from John, but I wrote down Eugene Hilton. I just think so. Let me shift gears then, because I had two. Eugene Hilton was my first one, just because we desperately need boundary receiver. Obviously, is the pedigree, the namesake. My next one's Carter Smith, because again, quarterback, 4-star guy. He's already getting a lot of praise from inside that room. Brady Collins loves him. He looks jacked. He's a baseball guy. I think he brings athleticism to that room. Anytime you bring in a 4-star quarterback, I think that's exciting because of the importance of the position. So I'm going to pivot on this because Eugene's getting love. I'm going to say Carter Smith as another player I'm very excited to see in spring.
Yeah, I've got 2 written down as well, but I'm Hilton is my number one guy here. You guys heard me talk about him during the recruitment. Like ever since Hilton kind of burst onto the scene, as even in our target list, I've been talking about him. And I think he really has elite route running. His hands are great, speed. The route running especially, that's that pedigree. I mean, I'm a Colts fan. I know a lot of what T.Y. Hilton was able to do. And like, I think Eugene Hilton has a lot of that, which is exciting. But the other one, Nick Clayton, man, like the guy's put on a ton of weight. He looks like he's physical. We desperately need some pass rushing. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot, like the pass rushing is interesting in general, but yeah. So for me, Nicholas Clayton and Eugene Hilton are 2 freshmen I'm very excited about. Wish Posa was coming right now, but of course he was wrestling, so he's not going to be here until the fall.
Yeah, Clayton's a really good one as well. All right, we're going to take a second here for our friends of the show. Come back and talk about position group we're most excited about and returning player you are most excited to see. I'm going to mention a player on defense that is just going to be a wrecking ball this year. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at TurboTax and a quick message from our friends over at TurboTax. What have taxes been? Taxes have been traditionally waiting and wondering, worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more, and then waiting, wondering, worrying some more. Now taxes are changed. It's different. Now taxes are matching up with a TurboTax expert that can help you do your taxes as soon as today. An expert that gives your taxes their undivided attention. An expert who will find you every dollar and every deduction possible, follow every form. You get real-time updates. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed with 100% accuracy. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with the TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. Let's come back into the spring football superlatives. Exciting time. Rajiv, I'll hit you with this one first. Which returning player are you most excited to see?
I mean, I feel like he's been one of my favorite players for the last few years, and I think he's going to be the ultimate player on defense this year, and it's Christian Allegro. I think he is the leader. I think he's going to be the leader of this team. Literally, since he was a freshman, we have been saying how excited we are about this guy, and I feel like this is the year that he takes that jump and becomes sort of like that next in line in the pedigree of Wisconsin linebackers. Look, you look in the NFL right now, there's linebackers everywhere. And I feel like he can be that next guy. So excited about what Christian Allegro is going to do. Really feel like, and that's what I'm most excited about in general with spring. It's like, I want to hear about the gains that he's had on the field. I want to see because when those players make jumps, you hear about it from all the practice reports. And I really feel like Christian Allegro is going to be the guy.
Yeah, I should have gone first on that one. You stole my guy. Yeah, I'll give you another one I'm really excited about, though. Emilio Agard. Agard came in last year. Everything you said about Allegro, I agree. 100%. Rubber stamp it. Agard is a guy who came in with quite a bit of hype. And now this is a cornerback room that has some openings. I think amazing that you're able to get, not hopefully still Fork Green back. I think that is still working its way through the appeal process by the NCAA. But Fork should be back. You're obviously able to get Rico back. But Agard might be your cornerback number 3. And I'm really excited to see him. Dylan Johnson, another guy on that defensive line, up to 313, former wrestler. I think he's going to be a rock and an anchor on that defensive line. And at that weight, he could be just a powerhouse. So I'm going to go with those 2, but I had Allegro written down as well.
Yeah, L Mills steps in and says returning Tretch. And Tretch is a good one, too. I did consider it, but Allegro had to be the guy. But Tretch, remember, he left and he came back. And then we thought we had lost him. And new offense, obviously the slot is still an important part of what Grimes does, too. Grimes runs a ton of mesh, a lot of crossers. And that's right up kind of Kekahuna's wheelhouse. I really feel like that's going to be something that he's going to do really well in. Koziel and Tretch could be really impactful guys in this offense with other crossing routes. So yeah, he's someone who I also feel like, he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, right? Like he's a guy that probably didn't get this, have as good of a year as last year as he wanted, didn't get as much playing time as he probably wanted. And he's probably come back ready to fight this year.
Yeah, Tretch is a good one. Another one here from John, Cade Yakimelli. I'm excited to see Cade. Some pictures of him on Instagram. He looks like he is ready to go take on a Russian boxer in a 1980s action movie. Like he looks the part.
Maybe they'll play him this year. I mean, he only had 8 yards of carry last year, but whatever.
If they don't play him again, I am personally going to buy him a ticket to the portal. I shouldn't say that, because I respect the heck out of like he's stuck it through. So many players now would have left. They would have been frustrated. Like, you got to give him so much credit he's kind of an old school guy. Dude, you have to give him the rock. I'm sorry. If he has another year where he's averaging like 6-7 yards, not even 8, and they're just like barely giving him the ball, I'm going to throw, man, it's going to be nuts. All right, let's move on for this. Positional group you're most interested in. I'll start with this one. I kind of teased it a little bit with Agar. I think there's a ton of people, obviously, front seven is going to be fascinating to watch with the new bodies there. I think it's cornerback. I think it's cornerback because the jump that Forkran made from his sophomore or his year one in Madison to year 2, I think there's another jump there. Getting Rico back, and now I'm really excited to see Agard, Harper, some of those young pieces. I like the young freshmen that they're bringing in this room. A couple of those guys could play this year. I'm very excited to see how the cornerback room looks. I think Agard potentially is a Big Ten player for us this year. And it's also a position, by the way, which you got to be worried a little bit. Some of those extra pieces have to step up. So I'm hopeful, and I'm excited at corner. I'm excited to see what's there.
So I've got 2 for this one because I couldn't really pick between. One is defensive line, which you kind of touched on a little bit. Like, obviously, Luke Fickell said they want to get bigger on the line. There's a lot of guys over 300 pounds now. We should be much better, but I really want to see like how some of these other returning guys even fit in there. Does Ben Barton have a role in there? Brandon Lane, some of those guys, and then you bring in the new guys like Parker Peterson and some of the names are escaping now. Perkins. Like, there's a lot of guys that I feel like could really be impactful. Dylan Johnson, we talked about him going up to 313 pounds. So there's a lot there. The other one for me is wide receiver. We know about Vinny, we know about Tretch. You kind of pencil those guys in as starters. We did a depth chart on the Bucky Report, and it was kind of interesting to think about the offensive depth chart and which receiver is really going to step up and take that other boundary spot. I mean, there's sleeper guys that like Chris Brooks and Griffin. Then you got Ballard and Hamper, and there's so many guys now that you're like, what is the rotation really going to look like? Who's going to get those snap counts offensively? And will a guy that we're not really expecting all of a sudden kind of burst on the scene and take that second boundary spot? Because there's a lot of guys that it could go to. So that's a really intriguing matchup for me, or just intriguing positional group, because we know the offensive line, we kind of know where that is. We know the quarterback is, we know where the running backs are, but offensively, the wide receivers are that one sort of, we don't really know what we're going to get. And there's a lot of talent in the room.
Well, we think there's talent, though. I don't know if there is. That's the thing, right?
Fair, very fair.
Is there a lot of talent? I don't know. I think there's a lot of numbers, and I think, but yeah, I'm very interested to see that. That's a really good one as well. I'm just not sure when you start thinking about some of the guys like the Burrows, Burrows and Brooks. I kind of wonder if there's a reason they brought in Griffin and Hamper and these other guys and Ballard. So it's got to shake itself out. There's a lot of bodies. Definitely fascinating there as well. I agree. What are we going to react to the most? Because we're going to, you and I.
Yeah, every completion and touchdown pass that Billy Edwards throws, I'm going to overreact to for sure. I mean, like I'll tell you what, guaranteed, I'm going to overreact to how this offense looks. And we're going to read every word that anyone who's going to that place is going to practice tomorrow and all through April. I'm going to read every word that they write. And I'm going to be looking for every little nugget about, who caught a touchdown pass and what great and how good the offense looked. And last year we kind of did the same thing. We're like, oh, Tyler Van Dyke can really do this and this. And it's just like, we are going to overreact to it. I'm probably going to overreact as well to any kind of run stuffs that happen with the defensive line, because I want so desperately for the defensive front to actually be what Wisconsin defensive fronts used to be, and trying to find out who those 3 tech guys are going to be. And also like what the defense is going to look like. But yeah, for me, I definitely going to overreact to every single touchdown pass that Billy Edwards throws.
I got to stop letting you go first, because I wrote down the passing game. Yeah. We have for like several years, it feels like we've been scrounging through like old campsites looking for food at the quarterback spot. And I'm like, oh, this will be okay. And now we're going to go to a grocery store, and it's just going to be a normal grocery store. And I'll be like, this is great. I had somebody tell me on a Big Ten squad show, I was like, Billy Edwards had 15 touchdowns, 9 picks last year. We're really excited for him. And the guy was like, bro, 15 touchdowns is like a bad year. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. You don't understand what we've been through. So I agree. I think we're going to overreact to the passing game, because I think he's going to be competent. But Billy Edwards Jr. is not like an elite quarterback. And I think we're going to overreact a little bit to that. I 100% agree with you. Let's go here. Who's a player that you think, and I'm going to kind of spread this out. And by the way, John asked, did Pauling die? We were talking about the receivers. He's dead to me, John. Will Pauling is dead to me, but he did not actually die. He just transferred. Let's talk about players and branches out between spring and fall. Who's a player that needs to make a move? Like, they have to make something on the depth chart. Otherwise, they're in danger of maybe getting spaced out here. I think KD Akimelli is an obvious one. We talked about it. If he's not getting, and this is going to be between spring and fall, but if he's not getting consistent reps, it's still just the two freshmen from last year. Maybe he gets 2 reps. I think he's a guy that you might look to transfer after spring. That's the first one I would go with. There's KD Akimelli.
I mean, one for me that I've always been like, where is he? Is Jamel Howard? It always comes up in my head of like, is this guy gonna be the guy that we thought he was gonna be? He was gonna be that potential zero tech kind of like Keanu Benton guy, right? And we've just never seen him, and we may never, and that's fine. But every time I think about like who needs to do something, I always think about it being him. And the other person I would say is a guy that I guess just like every spring we hear about him, but every fall we really don't. And it's Chris Brooks. I mentioned it earlier, and I want to see something exciting from Chris Brooks to make a move to actually get snaps and to be a part of the receiving core. You talked about how we don't know where the talent is. There's a lot of numbers, but remember last spring we were like, dude, Chris Brooks looks like a dude. And then we didn't really see him. So yeah, Chris Brooks for me is the guy that every time I think about like that, I want him to do something and show that he can really be a player, because I think he can be.
Yeah, I like him. He's one of my penny stock guys. I'll give you another one that it doesn't have to happen like right now, but Tackett Curtis needs to start kind of becoming the guy that we think he can become. Otherwise, you have a lot of linebacker talent coming up behind him. You mentioned one of them, Mason Posa. Like, you have a lot of guys coming up. Tackett he's finally healthy. This is his kind of first healthy offseason. It was a little rough last year. And I don't think it's fair to judge him on that based off what he was coming off of USC and kind of the transition, still getting healthy and still dealing with injuries. Now it's time to start playing. Now it's time to start fulfilling that blue chip status. So I think Tackett Curtis is another guy that between spring and fall, you're going to want to see some growth there. Otherwise, you're going to start looking at the next crop coming up behind him.
You're definitely right about that. That's a good point, because there are guys out there. I mean, obviously Heiberger's moving to the inside now too, right? So there's a lot of potential there, and Turner that's there. So yeah, and we were excited about Tackett. I was really excited about Tackett when he transferred in. So yeah, I think that's a really good one. Like, hopefully he took a step, because if he did, and you talk about Allegro and Curtis in the inside there, that could be very dangerous.
Yeah, his high school film was incredible. And if he can start to build on some of what is there physically, it could be really fun. You have those two, and then you have maybe Janzi behind him. You have Heiberger behind him. Like, you can start to build some fun stuff out of that. All right, last one here. When this is all done, when spring football is all wrapped up, what is the one thing that you most hope to have seen happen? What would make you happy that comes out of this?
For me, it goes back to the passing game. It just goes back to the ability to create like good, solid offense. It's know that the receivers and Billy Edwards are connecting, know that the offense is moving, know that it looks, from all the people that are there watching, that it looks good and it looks like it's got upside and potential, because everything hinges on that, right? I mean, we've seen what Braden Locke and this offense looked like, and well, not this offense, the other offense, and how we were as about inept offensively as we've been in a long time. And that has to improve, and we have to be able to run the ball consistently. We have to be able to have a passing game with a pulse, and we have the quarterback to do it. So for me, it all really hinges on that. I know I thought about defensively and whether the defensive line is there, but I think defensively we've got things that have to be cleaned up. But to me, it's all quarterback play, man. Like, I hate to state the obvious, like, no, that's what that is, but it's just kind of everything rests and hinges on what he can do, and whether this offense with Edwards and Grimes is really going to be far, far improved from the Locke Longo offense.
Yeah, and to that point, I would like to see, because Edwards runs, Edwards takes some shots. So quarterback depth, it would be nice if everybody looks a little more in sync. The offense looks a little better. I think defensively is the other thing I'm looking for. You're right. Quarterback is the most important part here, and that's what everyone's going to be glued to. Can we start seeing formationally some usage of these bigger bodies? Is it going to look like a 4-2? Is it going to look like a 3-3-5 with that big overhang, that elephant end that, teams will use? I think last year people were so frustrated with the light defensive front, and what are we doing? Why are there no adjustments? I would love in spring to see, even if it's a 4-3 at times, and see 4 300-pounders on that line. And just, can we be more physical, dude? We used to bully people in all the best ways, right? Because bullying's bad, but in all the best ways. I want us to get back to that. I want to see defensively some alignments that make sense against the run. So I think quarterback play and then defensive alignments to me are big time.
I think that is so well said. And I'm glad you said that because like we have the physicality thing that you mentioned is so true. Like that has been one of the biggest failures that Luke Fickell has had since he's been here, frankly. Now, and he has said it. He said as much. He said we need to be more physical. We need to be bigger. We need to. He wants everything to change. And will it actually change? Will we be more? And you're right. The multiplicity is another thing that's important. All the coaches have talked about that. Tressel's talked about that. Grimes has talked about that. Fickell's talked about it. That multiplicity is how teams can be out schemed, and you can actually be better tactically than the other teams. And yeah, that's a really good one, and it's something that we do need to see more of because something's got to give on this defensive side of the ball. Like we've got to get better. For too many years we've been not Wisconsin defense, and the only way Wisconsin's going to be really good is when we're really good on the defensive side of the ball. It has to be. You have to be in this league, in this 18-team monster league, that you can be caught in the middle very easily, right? You're just going to be one of those teams in the middle. If you ever want to be near the top of this league again, it's got to start on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep. And even further, man, it's got to start in the trenches because Wisconsin's never going to be elite in the secondary. They're never going to have Ohio State's corners where there's multiple first-round picks and, they're taking, what's his name from Alabama? I can't think of his name. It's the safety that they got from Alabama was just a monster. But you're never going to have that at Wisconsin. We can all wish we could, but we're not going to. So being strong on defense means you're tough and physical up front. Raj says, I want to see some physicality on defense this year. We've lost it last few years. I could not agree more. And dude, like you and I are not football geniuses. I think, I'm not. I don't want to speak for you, but like, I don't think I know more than Coach Tressel. Like he's been in the game. He's coached a lot longer. And obviously, I don't know more than him, but it's frustrating when we're seeing things that seem kind of obvious and it wasn't adjusted to. We're seeing Iowa just run over us because we're too friggin' light. So change it. You got to change it. We're not smarter than Coach Tress, but like we're also not idiots. Like it's not working.
Against a team that's not going to pass the ball, by the way. Like they're going to run. Just put more people up there. Oh God.
Yes. 10 passes achieved for 42 points. Anyway, we're going to wrap it there on a good note because we're going to say beat Northwestern. I do think they'll get it done tomorrow. Obviously, we'll react after that. So on Wisconsin, thank you for tuning in as always. Appreciate the absolute heck out of you guys, whether you're watching live, whether you get it on YouTube, whether you get it on the car on the way to work, on a podcast, whatever it is. Thank you so much. Time is the most important thing any of us has, and you're willing to give a little bit of this show, so that's amazing. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Big Ten, all the biggest stories from the conference over on the Locked On Big Ten channel. Realignment, NIL, portal news is all over there on Wisconsin. Appreciate you all so much, and we will definitely talk tomorrow after the Wisconsin Badgers beat the Northwestern Wildcats. Let's go.